Has anyone ever walked into your home, looked around, and said, "Wow, this looks like a hotel?" And you smiled and said thank you, because that felt like a compliment. Clean lines, neutral palette, everything in its place. Nothing unnecessary, nothing out of order. It looks designed. It looks intentional. It looks like the kind of space that gets photographed and saved. And there is a version of that compliment that is genuinely flattering. But there is another version, and this is what almost nobody talks about, where what the person actually meant and what you might actually feel when you come home at the end of a long day is that the space is beautiful and completely impersonal, that it could belong to anyone, that it is stunning in the way that a display home is stunning, which is to say impressive and empty of any evidence that a specific human being with a specific history and specific tastes and a specific life actually lives there. And the question worth sitting with, the one this entire video is going to unpack, is how so many American homes ended up there, why it happened so quietly, and what it costs people who live in spaces that look right but feel like they belong to nobody. Because here is what nobody in the design content world is saying directly enough. There is an epidemic of personality-free homes in the United States right now. And it did not happen because people stopped caring about their spaces. It happened because people started caring in a very specific way. A way that was shaped by a decade of clean design content, minimalist aesthetics, neutral palettes, and the relentless visual curation of platforms that reward spaces for looking good in a photograph rather than for feeling good to live in. And those two things, it turns out, are not the same requirement at all. According to data from the American Institute of Architects, GRAGE, the gray-beige hybrid that became the defining neutral of the last decade, appeared in more than 60% of new interior paint consultations at its peak popularity. 60% of American homes moving toward the same color family at the same time, informed by the same visual reference points, producing interiors that are individually inoffensive and collectively indistinguishable. And this is not a coincidence. It is the direct result of what happens when design inspiration is primarily consumed through a medium that flattens three-dimensional lived experience into two-dimensional visual appeal. A room that photographs beautifully is often a room that has been stripped of everything that makes it specific to the person who lives in it. The clutter of a life actually being lived, the objects that mean something specific and undesignable, the accumulated evidence of a personality that a professional stylist would edit out before the shoot. What you are looking at on Pinterest is not a home. It is a performance of a home. And a generation of Americans have been trying to make their real homes match that performance, with predictable results. Here's the question that should start to reframe this for you. Think about the most memorable home you have ever been inside. Not the most beautifully designed, not the most expensive or the most photogenic. The one that stayed with you. The one where you walked in and felt immediately that you were somewhere specific. Somewhere that could not exist anywhere else. Somewhere that told you something true and interesting about the people who inhabited it. What made it memorable? Almost certainly not the neutral palette and the clean lines and the absence of anything unexpected. Almost certainly it was something specific. A wall of books that clearly had actually been read. A collection of objects from travel that were clearly meaningful rather than decorative. Art that was chosen because someone loved it rather than because it matched the sofa. Evidence everywhere of a life being genuinely and specifically lived by an actual person with an actual history. That specificity is not an accident, and it is not in spite of good design. In the hands of every serious interior designer who works with actual human beings rather than with magazine shoots, it is the goal. It is the hardest thing to achieve and the most valuable thing a room can have. There is a documented psychological principle at work here that explains why this matters beyond aesthetics. And it connects back to research we covered in a previous video about negative space and the way your nervous system responds to your physical environment. A 2018 study published in Personality and Social Psychology Bulletin found that people's living spaces are read by others and experienced by the inhabitants themselves as extensions of identity. When a space accurately reflects the identity of the person living in it, both the person and their guests experience it as more welcoming, more trustworthy, and more comfortable. When a space does not reflect the identity of the person living in it, when it is aspirationally designed towards some external ideal rather than organically grown from genuine preferences, the mismatch registers. Not always consciously, not always in words, but in that quality you have definitely experienced of walking into someone's home and feeling like the person who lives there is somehow not quite in the room with you. The home that looks like a hotel gives you that feeling because hotels are designed for nobody in particular. They are designed for the broadest possible appeal to the widest possible audience, which is to say, they are designed for the statistical average rather than for any specific person. And your home at its best should be the exact opposite of that. So, how did we get here? How does a person who has specific tastes and a specific history and genuine preferences end up in a home that looks like it was designed for someone else? This is where it gets interesting and where the answer is probably more specific than you might expect. The most common path runs something like this. You move into a new space and you want it to look good. You go to Pinterest for inspiration. What you find there in the highest performing content are spaces that photograph well, which means spaces with cohesive color palettes, clean surfaces, and an absence of the visual complexity that makes rooms feel cluttered in a photograph, even when they feel inhabited and alive in person. You start curating toward that. You edit out the things that feel too personal, too specific, too much like your particular taste rather than a legible shared aesthetic. You add the things that look right: the neutral linen throw, the organic shaped vase, the framed neutral print, the woven basket. And slowly, over months or years, you end up in a space that looks genuinely good but that has somehow stopped feeling like you. And you cannot quite identify the moment it happened because each individual decision seemed reasonable. The aggregate is the problem, not any single choice. This process has been significantly accelerated by what designers sometimes call the algorithm aesthetic, the tendency of visual platforms to promote content that performs well with a broad audience, which systematically favors the broadly appealing over the specifically interesting. The room that any person might like is rewarded over the room that a specific kind of person would love. And when millions of people are taking their design cues from a system that is optimizing for broad appeal, the result is a kind of aesthetic convergence, a narrowing of the range of what homes look like that produces individual spaces which are pleasant and collective spaces which are indistinguishable. You scroll through a home account and everything is beautiful, and everything looks the same, and nothing makes you feel like you are looking at evidence of a specific human interior life. Because you are not. You are looking at evidence of an algorithm's preferences, and those two things are very different sources of design inspiration. Now here's the part that most design content never gets around to saying because it is commercially inconvenient. The solution to the hotel room problem is not buying different things. It is almost never buying anything. The specific, personal, irreplaceable quality that makes a home feel genuinely inhabited is almost always composed of things that already exist in the person's life and have been systematically removed in pursuit of the cleaner, more cohesive, more photographable ideal. The stack of books on the bedside table that actually reflects what you are reading, the objects from travels that have specific memories attached to them, the piece of art that your grandmother made that is not particularly sophisticated, but that means something, the collection of something, anything, that accumulated over years because you actually cared about the thing being collected rather than because it looked good on a shelf. The imperfect, the specific, the personal, the old, the meaningful. These are the things that make a home feel like a home rather than a hotel. And they are the things that the clean design aesthetic most reliably and systematically removes. This brings us to a concept that professional interior designers talk about among themselves and almost never explain clearly to clients. The concept of collected versus curated. A curated space is one where every object was chosen for its visual contribution to a designed whole. A collected space is one where objects accumulated over time because they meant something to the person. And the design challenge is creating enough visual coherence that the collection reads as intentional rather than random. The best rooms in the world are almost always collected spaces, not curated ones. They have a quality of having grown rather than been arranged. And that quality is not reproducible by purchasing the right objects. It can only come from actually living a life and allowing the evidence of that life to be present rather than edited out. Here's what this means practically, and this is the part of the video I want you to actually remember. If your home feels like a hotel, the answer is almost certainly not a new furniture purchase or a renovation or different color on the walls. The answer is asking yourself one honest question about every space that feels empty or impersonal. What would I put here if I stopped asking whether it looks right and started asking whether it is true? What is the actual thing that belongs in this room from your actual life? Maybe it is the stack of books you have been moving from surface to surface because they feel like clutter, but that represent what you have actually been thinking about for the last 6 months. Maybe it is the prints from your travels that you never framed because they felt too specific, too personal, not quite designer enough. Maybe it is the ceramics your kid made that you relegated to a closet because they didn't match anything. Maybe it is the instrument you actually play that you have been hiding because it does not fit the aesthetic. These are not design problems, they are life problems. They are the evidence of a person's actual existence that has been asked to make itself invisible in its own home in order to accommodate a visual standard that was designed for a photograph. There is also something worth saying about imperfection here because it is the element that the hotel aesthetic most completely eliminates and that real homes most need. A perfect room, one where every element was chosen and placed and nothing arrived accidentally or accumulated organically, has a specific quality that functions as the opposite of warmth. It communicates that things are managed rather than inhabited, that the space is maintained rather than used. There is a reason why the homes that feel most genuinely welcoming almost always have one or two things that are imperfect, unexpected, or slightly out of place. A well-worn rug that has seen real use, a mismatched chair that ended up in the room for a real reason, a wall that has had things on it in different configurations over different years. These imperfections are not design failures. They are the evidence of duration, of actual time being spent in a space by an actual person. And your nervous system, whatever your aesthetic preferences, registers that evidence as the signal that you are somewhere real rather than somewhere performed. Your home should feel different from every other home you walk into. Not because you decorated it differently, but because you are different. Because your specific combination of history and taste and accumulated objects and meaningful imperfections and the particular life you have lived is unlike anyone else's. That specificity is not a decorating challenge to be solved. It is the whole point. The hotel you have been trying to build, however beautiful it is a space designed for nobody. The home you already have the ingredients for, the real one, with the specific objects and the evidence of the life actually being lived in it, is a space designed for you. And there is no aesthetic on any platform that is worth trading that for. The next time someone tells you your home looks like a hotel, you will know what to do with that. You can decide what kind of hotel you want to be living in. The one that was designed for the broadest possible audience and feels comfortable in the way that anywhere comfortable feels comfortable. Or the one that was designed so specifically for the person who lives there that walking into it feels like meeting them for the first time. The second kind of home is harder to create and impossible to replicate. It is also the only kind that feels, at the end of the day, genuinely like yours. Dear viewer, if you found value in this video, like it and share it with friends and family. Subscribe to our channel and turn on the bell icon so that you will be notified every time we upload a new video. Thank you for watching until the end. We will see you in our next video. Until then, stay safe and stay blessed.